It was December of 1990, and the Tiede family was gearing up for their usual holiday tradition, spending Christmas at their secluded cabin tucked away in the mountains of Utah. A peaceful getaway, just like every other year. But this time, things would take a dark and tragic turn. Rolf Tiede, born in Germany in 1939, had moved to the US with his mother when he was just a boy. In his early 20s, he met Kay Tidwell, a woman from Nevada, and the two clicked instantly. They got married in 1963 and eventually settled in Humble, Texas. The couple was deeply committed to their faith and family, dreaming of a big household full of kids. But after some struggle with infertility, they adopted a daughter, Linne, and a few years later, another son, Sean. Then, just weeks after bringing Sean into the family, Kay found out she was pregnant with their daughter, Trisha. Their lives were pretty much perfect. Rolf found success as a salesman and eventually started his own business, Skyline Equipment in Houston. Each year, they would make the long trek to Oakley, Utah, to their cabin, a remote spot 4 kilometers off the main road. It was the ultimate escape from the world, a chance to disconnect and enjoy some quality family time. Kay loved the place so much, she called it Tita's Tranquility, a beautiful retreat surrounded by aspen trees and a picturesque river. The winter months made it even more isolated. To get to the cabin, you couldn't just drive up to the door. You'd park your car miles away and ride snowmobiles the rest of the way. It was truly a getaway from it all. In 1990, they planned the same thing they'd done every year. On December 20th, Kay and Sean flew in from Texas, where Kay's sister Claudia was waiting to pick them up. Rolf, Linne, and Trisha were set to arrive the next day, as the couple liked to travel separately. Just in case something happened on the way, one parent would always be there with the kids. After arriving, Kay, Sean, and Claudia made their way up to the cabin. As they were heading up on the snowmobiles, they noticed a strange guy, probably in his early 20s, walking along the trail. He was dressed completely wrong for the weather. Tennis shoes, jeans, and a light jacket in freezing conditions. Kay, concerned, stopped to check on him, but he didn't respond. He just walked away, which felt off. They went on to the cabin, and after settling in, Kay told Rolf about the encounter. She was uneasy and asked him to bring the shotguns with him, just in case. Rolf, however, didn't think it was necessary. The area was known for being safe. There had been only one violent incident in the last 100 years. But Kay insisted. So Rolf loaded the shotguns and headed up to join the family. The next day, after getting everything set up, Kay, Beth, her mother, and Linne headed into town for last-minute shopping. While they were gone, Rolf and Trisha stayed behind. Kay, Beth, and Linne got back to the cabin, and as they arrived, Linne saw what she thought was her cousin David inside the cabin. But when she went inside to warm up, she didn't find David. Instead, she came face to face with a man with frizzy hair who stepped out from behind the fridge with a gun. He forced her to call her mother and grandmother upstairs. And when Kay helped her mother up the stairs, another man, wearing thick Coke bottle glasses, appeared out of nowhere and pointed a gun at them. Without a word, the man with the frizzy hair shot Kay, then shot her mother, Beth, in the head 3 times. As if that wasn't enough, the men dragged Linne into the bedroom, tied her up, and stuffed a dirty sock in her mouth. Afterward, they ransacked the cabin, taking jewelry, cash, and anything of value, and then set the house on fire, trying to erase any trace of their crime. Meanwhile, Rolf and Trisha arrived back at the cabin. As they pulled up, the man with the frizzy hair dragged Lene outside, forcing her to watch as they pointed a gun at Rolf. Rolf, seeing the fear in his daughter's eyes, knew something was horribly wrong. The men demanded money. Rolf handed over $105, pleading for his family's lives. But the men didn't care. The man with the glasses pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. After 2 more attempts, the gun went off. Rolf was shot in the face. Trisha, who was only 16, was screaming in horror as her father fell. The men then tried to set the entire cabin on fire, dousing it in gasoline, likely to destroy any evidence. They made Lene and Trisha load up the snowmobiles with stolen goods and head down to the garage. When they passed Randy, Rolf's brother, he waved, thinking they were just the girls with their boyfriends. They ignored him, knowing if they didn't, his life could also be in danger. At the garage, the men forced the girls to load everything into the family car, a Lincoln Town car, and began their escape. The plan was to drive to New York and let the girls go once they were far enough. But they weren't fooled. They knew if they went with the men, they probably wouldn't make it out alive. They had no choice. Soon after, their Uncle Randy saw another snowmobile approach the main road. As the driver got closer, Randy was horrified to realize that the person on the snowmobile was his brother, Rolf. Neither Rolf's daughters nor the killers knew that Rolf had pretended to be dead after he had been shot. In a later interview, Trisha Tita said that she learned that her dad had been doused with gasoline and had also caught on fire. He had to run into the shower and tear off his snowsuit while on fire. This is the shower where Rolf doused the flames. Rolf told Randy that intruders who broke into the cabin killed Kay and Beth and kidnapped his daughters. Randy then called authorities to get help for the girls and to get his brother airlifted to a hospital. A high-speed chase ensued, and the men were finally caught. The girls, still in the car, looked out to see the police closing in. They just held hands, praying they'd make it out. The 2 men, Von Taylor and Edward Deli, were arrested without much trouble. Their plan had failed, and the authorities had the evidence they needed to put them away for good. But the horror wasn't over. Inside the cabin, police found a video camera with footage of the men opening presents, acting like they were part of the family. The 2 men had been staying there for days, eating food, and living in the Tiede family's home while planning their crime. The men were charged with multiple murders and kidnappings. They had a history of criminal behavior and had been out on parole when they decided to wreak havoc on an innocent family. Both Von Taylor and Edward Deli had done time at the Utah State Penitentiary. Taylor was serving time for aggravated burglary. Deli, arson. After their release, they crossed paths again at a halfway house. But rather than reintegrating into society like the system intended, the 2 men took the opportunity to vanish. On December 14th, they slipped away from the halfway house and hitchhiked to Oakley, Utah, where Taylor's father owned a cabin. Instead of starting new lives, they began planning a spree. They spent the week before Christmas burglarizing cabins in the area. On December 20th, they spotted the Tita's family cabin. 2 days later, on December 22nd, they broke in. The nightmare unfolded from there. The men were captured and arraigned on January 22nd before Judge Frank Knoll. They faced a staggering list of charges. Both pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but court evaluators declared them fit for trial. 5 months later, Taylor took a deal. He pled guilty to 2 counts of capital murder in exchange for all other charges being dropped. But that plea meant facing the death penalty. At his sentencing, Taylor was painted as the ringleader, cold, emotionless, and unrepentant. Medical examiner Dr. Sharon Schnicker testified that Kay had been shot 5 times. the fatal round entering her shoulder and tearing through vital organs. Beth Potts had been shot 3 times, including once in the head. Both were killed with a .44 caliber gun, identified by the surviving daughters as Taylor's weapon. When Rolfe walked into court, still bearing the scars, Taylor was visibly stunned. Rolfe later said that facing Taylor in court and telling his story was a weight off his shoulders. Taylor testified in his own defense, but showed no remorse and argued aggressively. It backfired. The jury sentenced him to death, twice. Edward Deli, on the other hand, chose to go to trial. He too was shocked to see Rolfe alive. The prosecution insisted Deli was equally responsible. He hadn't pulled the trigger, but he was there for every burglary and never tried to stop the murders. His defense claimed Taylor was the monster. Rolfe rebuilt the cabin. In an interview, Tricia said that they are not going to take away from us the things that we love and we enjoy in our life. They took our mom, they took our Grams, but that's where it ends. For Lene and Tricia, the cabin is magical and it's healing. Rolfe lived a full and productive life surrounded by family and many grandchildren. He passed away in 2008 with his family beside him. The families still go to the cabin to enjoy it and make memories with family and friends. In the end, both men were held accountable for the unimaginable horror they inflicted on the Tiede family. But for the survivors, the scars of that Christmas would never fade.